Hello and welcome to episode 67 of our Conversations to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. Our conversation this week is with the inspiring Patrice Tabor, joining us from Shoreline, Washington. Welcome, Patrice.
Hi, everyone.
I am so excited to be able to roll up our sleeves and discuss Toot Your Own Horn, share your strengths and confidence to expand opportunities with us today. So Patrice, thank you so much for sharing this really fun topic with us, with our Exceptional Connections community on Tuesday. And Linda's here. It was great to be able to feature her and have her share her star story. And I'm excited to share my star story today.
Yeah, I am too. Can't wait to hear it.
So before we get going here, I want to introduce Patrice to those of you who may not know her. So Patrice is a certified life coach and workshop facilitator. She is committed to learning and personal transformation through courageous self-discovery and passionate exploration of your unique strengths and values. Patrice assists you to overcome barriers so that you may reach your goal and experience ultimate joy and satisfaction in your life and work. So, Patrice, I'm going to toss it back to you and have you share a little bit more about your journey before we dive in here.
Thank you, Cyndi. I'd just like to begin and say, why is it that we're so shy about talking about our strengths and tooting our own horn? Well, social psychologists say it's the social bias or social conditioning we receive when we're small. Don't brag about yourself. Don't boast. Be humble. Be modest. It's especially true for women, isn't it? Aren't we taught to be quiet and demure? Well, is this really working for us? Does it work when we're going for a job interview or we're networking for opportunities or we're working with clients? No, it does not. So I'm excited to share with you a two-step process to first identify your strengths so you have something to toot about, and then also how to share those strengths with confidence. There you go, Cyndi.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Well, thank you for that. And I'm really excited to be able to be featured with the star story and put this process into action here. So what's the first step?
Well, the first step, first of all, why are we shy about talking about strengths? So it is the social conditioning that we receive, but it's also maybe we're not sure of our strengths, or maybe we know our strengths, but we don't quite know how to talk about it. Or someone might say, you know, what is it that you do? Right away, we go into content. We talk about our business or what we do rather than sharing what value we can bring to a client. So there's many reasons why we are shy or maybe just unprepared to talk about our strengths.
Yeah, it seems like people are reluctant to be able to do that. So I'm excited to be able to dig in here. So what is the good experience story exercise that you talked to us about at our event?
Yes, the good experience exercise is really the foundation of this process. It was developed by a renowned career counselor here in Seattle, Dr. Bernard Haldane, who defines the good experience as 3 criteria. So something you do well, something you enjoy doing, and something that you're proud of. You must have all these 3 criteria in your story. You must also be an active participant. You cannot be a passive observer. So maybe you go to the Mariners game and it's a good experience, you know, you have fun, but you were not active in that story. So in this definition, it would not be a good experience story.
So not a passive observer, but an active participant.
Exactly.
Okay. So why is it important to share your good experience story with another person?
So this exercise, you usually partner up with another person and you have them listen carefully to your story and try to tease out what are your strengths that you demonstrate in that story. And then they feed that back to you at the end. So why is this so powerful? Because oftentimes we downplay our strengths or we think, oh, well, everybody can do that. That's no big deal. Or maybe we have hidden strengths. Like, oh, I didn't realize that I had that strength as innovator. So by sharing it with another person, it helps you to, again, tease out. And the other benefit is that it unleashes the passion, the joy, the enthusiasm that you have for that particular story.
That sounds great. I love that. That's okay. So let's get to the heart of this. What is the star story? And I'm going to go ahead and while you're talking about it, I'm going to put the slide up for it. So I think it would be helpful.
All right. So the star story is just a structure. In this case, it's an acronym that stands for S, situation, T, task, A, action, and R, result. So the purpose of the star story, it gives you a structure so that you're able to first remember your story, because sometimes we get lost in our story. We don't even know where we're going with it. So it provides a structure for you, and it also allows you to be concise and clear with your story, because as we know, sometimes we ramble or we get off track. So it gives you this structure so that you can communicate your strengths with confidence, with clarity, and then the passion comes out because you've already done the good experience story with your partner. So that passion, that enthusiasm comes out.
Right. So all of those are really great benefits from practicing your story. Is there anything else, or is that pretty much in a nutshell, what people can benefit from?
Well, let me just go a little bit more detail into the star because I didn't cover that. So the S, the situation, you give the context of the story. Give a little background. Was it a project? Were you working with the client? Were you traveling, or did you make food for your neighbor? What was the context of the story? The task is the goal or what you were set out to do. The action is what you did to make it happen. And this is where you want to emphasize your strengths. And then our result, what was the outcome, both tangible and intangible? And this is where that passion and pride is going to be coming out in your story.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull down that screen. And we get into my story.
Yay. This is exciting.
So start us off here.
Now, before Cindy's going to be sharing her good experience story, all of you have a role in this because you have to listen carefully to Cindy's story and jot down what you think Cindy's strengths were in that story. So just keep it brief, a couple descriptive words, maybe a short phrase. And then I'm going to ask for some feedback so that Cindy can hear what feedback you have for her. All right, so is everyone ready? You have a piece of paper, something to write on? All right, so we're going to go about this a little differently. I'm going to ask Cindy some questions to guide the story a little bit. All right, so Cindy, tell us, how did you first get interested in homeschooling?
So my sister sent me some books about homeschooling when I was in my first pregnancy with my daughter. And although I was really intrigued by the success stories and was a college graduate, I was really intimidated by the huge responsibility. So my firstborn daughter, April, was born bright and curious and hungry to learn. And she started reading at 2.5 years old. And At that time, we moved from California to Washington well, not at that time, but a few years later, Washington to Oregon in 1988 with the intention to homeschool because I'd done some research. However, since we had 3 kids under 5 and nursing my 12-month-old son, we decided to put her in half-day kindergarten. And this gave me the time to research homeschooling support groups in Washington and confirm the benefits of homeschooling, and also just give April an opportunity to really, establish her desire to be homeschooled as well. So we learned just briefly, the benefits of homeschooling were flexibility and, what the kids learned, how they learned, where they learned, that children with different academic abilities flourished and did well, that it fostered independent learners, family bonding. Kids typically test higher than their peers in homeschooling, and then the social benefits as well.
Great. Thanks, Cyndi. Now tell me, what was your vision? Tell me about your vision.
Well, I guess it goes back to 1985 is when homeschooling had become legal in the state of Washington. And, friendships had formed as families sought their way to, give confidence and encouragement to each other and share ideas. And we organized small classes in our homes and made them available to others as they became available. So while all of these activities were really important to our weekly homeschooling process, what we found, and I found myself, is that we spent a lot of time running around. Like, we were hardly ever home to homeschool. We were just taking advantage of all kinds of opportunities. And, during that time, a lot of moms, we got to know each other and our strengths. And so the vision we had was really to have these opportunities in one location. So we're not running around, possibly once a week. And so kind of what spurred this is that I had attended a class at a library that a gentleman had offered for teaching science to young kids. And I signed my kids up with it. And then I thought, gosh, this would be great for homeschoolers. So I asked him if I would be able to facilitate a class and have him teach to homeschool students. And he agreed, and I created the class schedule and filled it up quickly. And, again, during this time, moms that I had known in my circle, we were all homeschooling and going all over the place. We had a mom that was hosting creative writing in her home, and then another one was doing math in her home and science in another, and drama productions, they were working on another. So again, we were just like chickens with our head cut off, running around all over the place and, rarely able to actually be home. So the vision was to be able to have one day, have classes, and then be able to stay home and actually get things done. So during the 1993-94 school year, 2 moms and I collaborated we had a location, North Lake Christian School in Bothell. We had the opportunity to use that facility. And then I brought the science teacher, and then another gal brought a creative writing teacher. And we had 2 classes that were in the same floor back to back. And we moved kids from one class to the next. And it was a huge success. The moms loved it. We had so much fun. The kids enjoyed it. And that was the kind of the seed that was planted for a co-op that was started years later. Actually, not years later. It was actually the next summer.
Okay. Well, Cyndi, what was the real magic? What was it that you really enjoyed out of that whole experience?
Well, the thing that comes to mind, that once we had the proof of concept that we knew that parents were willing to do that and all of that, we actually, the moms met at a park, and while our kids were playing, we got a whiteboard and we brought resources. So I taught Spanish, another mom taught, science and English and different things. And so we put together a half-day co-op, and it was very successful. And then the next year we did the full 5 classes co-op, 94, 95. And so, I did all the hand registration, and I was the teacher facilitator. I hired the teachers and set up the process where we had a parent in each classroom, and they collected the money, so it didn't run through the co-op. It ran directly. The money was collected by a mom that was in the class and gave it directly to the teacher. So, all of those processes were put in place. I think the magic was that the vision of being able to have once a week where the kids would go to school and get the assignments from the teachers, and then, then have the rest of the week being able to actually focus on that. It helped really foster the kids to be independent learners. We still did a lot of work, that I'd given my kids, as well. But my daughter and a lot of the kids of the moms that were involved, our kids were college bound. They were really bright kids, and we didn't want to handicap them. And so, we wanted to make sure that when they got into college or high school, which is where all these kids were just transitioning from junior high to high school, that they had the chemistry and the trig and the biology and all the classes that they needed to be able to easily assimilate into whatever, whether it's junior college or university. And so I started a second day. So that was the Monday school, and then I started the Wednesday school. A lot of the moms thought I was crazy, but frankly, I was going through a divorce at the time, and it was easier for me to administer and organize than it was to teach my daughter trigonometry. And so, so that was the vision at the time, is to create, and we did this, like when our kids were in junior high, we were hiring the high school teachers so that they were in place when our kids were moving into that. So, there's so many things that were magical about that time and that experience. It was very difficult. It was very focused intention. There's a lot going on in my life personally. I was going through a divorce, and just wanting to be, have a solid foundation for my kids. And I was grateful that through that whole experience, I was still able to homeschool and teach Spanish and be in that setting. So, the thing was, we wanted, as moms that created the co-op, I was one of the co-founders of Homeschool Connections. Big surprise, Homeschool Connections. But our first obligation was to our own families, our own children. And so we all volunteered our talents, time, and energy to classes that were offered. We did not receive any financial compensation, nor did we expect it. We agreed that since our families and children were the priority and the real reason for coordinating this co-op, that the classes and the teachers were, there to meet our needs first. And I'm so grateful that we had the insight to set it up that way, because, and we made it known very clearly to everybody. That was our intention. And any openings that were available after that, we made available through a lottery. And then we had the board, just decide on the rules and regulations as situations would come up. It was like I said, a very challenging, hard time, but it was a gratifying time. And I look back at it, and I think of it was a whole new, another lifetime, I'm sure we can all look at different periods of our life when we raised our kids and gone through different career changes. Is like, it's another part of me, but it was very gratifying.
Well, a whole other world.
Whole other world,
Sure.
whole other community.
Yeah.
And my best friends that were, we all worked together and coordinated the co-op and collaborated together. Our kids were also best friends. So it really was beautiful.
Yeah, almost provided like a second family for you.
Yeah, so we had the Monday school. I started the Wednesday school for high school students. It was just 9th through 12th, because I found my daughter needed more classes than was provided in the 5 classes that were available through Monday school. And eventually we incorporated and became a 501c3. And we, you know, in 2001, became a nonprofit organization.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. Thank you so much, Cyndi, for sharing that. So now I'm going to ask the rest of you, what do you think Cyndi's greatest strengths are that you heard demonstrating in that story? So do we have any volunteers that are willing to maybe read off?
Feel free to unmute yourselves.
I'll go.
So,
I've got a
Kim?
list.
All right.
So obviously Cyndi is educated, college educated. Her strengths are in connecting people, organizing events, creating communities, leadership, administration, and just being organized. She's also very responsible and will rise to a challenge.
Great, thank you. And how about Trish? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I can concur with Kim, said it beautifully. But one of the things too is you saw a need and you filled it, and you found the way to fill it. And I think that's really important because a lot of people, they see a need, but there's no action. So not only did you see a need, you filled it, you took the action. And of course, we all know that you're smart and you're brilliant and you're intelligent, that you are a great collaborator and a great networker. We know those things about you already, but yeah, that even, with Exception Connections, there was need and you filled it.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Trish.
Thank you. And
Heather.
So I dropped mine in the chat. I got lifelong learner, amazing mom, teaching your 2.5-year-old to read, like the patience, like there's so much that goes into who you are as a person, what that says to me about that. Growth minded, connection maker, you're a community leader, a visionary, organizer, connector, and the kindness and grace about how you move around in your story and talk about it. Like, oh, we just moved across the country. Like, oh, like thinking about how organized you must have been to be able to say it like that. Like all of those skills, definitely.
Thank you.
great, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll add to that everything they said was beautiful. She has such a generous heart, and just all the giving. I mean, there's just no selfishness involved. Complete giving.
Beautiful.
You guys are making me cry.
And I see something here in the chat from Linda that you address problems as they come up. So anyone else have anything there to share?
And like big picture problems, not like just like, oh, I don't know how to get from A to B. Like you see it like, oh, this is a problem we're all having. How do I fix that? And having that vision, that's part of that visionary piece.
So Cyndi, how does it hear to get this feedback? How does it feel?
It's really, like I said, makes me want to cry. Just, it's so touching. And I, especially coming from each of you who I value and love so much and appreciate, it means a lot. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. It makes me feel, we all go through hard times in our lives, and it's nice to know that you have a community of people who are around you that care.
Were there any surprises? Anything that you heard that kind of took you by surprise or maybe you weren't aware of? Or does it sound like strengths that you knew that you had?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Oh, sorry. I thought. Surprises for myself. It was actually really fun to go back and reminisce, right? Go back and look back at that time. That was it wasn't a terrible time, but it was a hard time. It was exhausting. And in some ways, there were times where it was terrifying because it's like I had my kids' education and future, in my hands in a lot of ways. And so I felt super responsible. And there was a lot of, there's people that there was a lot of negativity because one of the reasons I mentioned that homeschooling had just become legal a couple years before is I was meeting moms when I first started homeschooling that had been underground homeschooling illegally for 10 years. So those were my mentors.
Wow.
So they were the pioneers, and then we were the legal pioneers. But they were the underground illegal, and they were like,
Mhm,
I mean, hardcore.
mhm.
And so it was really I didn't realize until years later how those were really beautiful formative years because I didn't take my kids out during the day to run errands because we got a lot of sneers and negativity. And so even when I took them to the doctor, I would come straight home. We didn't mess around because there wasn't the same openness towards homeschooling that there is now. And there wasn't the curriculum that there is now. And so we were using Bob Jones and Abeka and all this curriculum that was written for Christian schools. And it didn't work when you're working with a kid one-on-one. So I wrote all my own curriculum
Mhm.
and we adapted curriculum. And so it's not only teaching your kids, but, like creating your own curriculum or finding the best of the best curriculum and adapting it. And then also it was each child needed their own curriculum. I went and bought thousands of dollars worth of curriculum for my daughter that not only didn't work for her and her learning style, but the boys didn't work for them either.
Mhm.
So, there was just there's a lot of learning that went on during those years. And
Mhm.
when I left homeschooling and became an entrepreneur, which is a whole different story, but I just mentioned that, I was really encouraged. I told Patrice this when we were prepping that God told me he'd been preparing me for this next season of my life. Because I was terrified. I mean, I wasn't homeschooling anymore. My kids weren't being homeschooled,
Mhm.
and I needed to provide for myself. And I needed to figure out,
Mhm.
who I was and what because I'd been focusing on them.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that transition was terrifying, but at the same time, it was comforting when, I felt like God had said that he had been preparing me because I thought I was like, homeschool mom. What do I know? How am I going to survive? But all those skills did serve me well.
I think I would add resilience in there.
Mhm.
You have a lot of resilience and you're able to bounce back. All right, at this time, we're going to share the star story now. Actually, Cyndi and I met last night and I heard her story and then I developed a star story for her. So I'm going to go ahead and read the star story for Cyndi now. Again, starting with the S, which is the situation. My 5-year-old daughter was already reading at 2.5 years old and was too advanced for kindergarten. I then became interested in homeschooling for her and my 2 other children. I attended a seminar at a Washington homeschool organization with other moms. And our family, plus 3 other families, had already formed kind of a mini co-op, and we did holidays and art projects together. And also in college, I was an English major with a minor in Spanish, and I always had this propensity towards education. Next is T for task. I had a vision that we could start a once-a-week homeschool, and got the other mothers on board. But we needed teachers, a curriculum, and a location. Now, A for action, it was really a challenge to fit all that in one paragraph. So it's a rather long one, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. I met a man at our library who was passionate about science and asked him to be our teacher. He agreed. I asked another friend to teach creative writing. I collaborated with one of the moms who allowed us to use space at her church. I created a core curriculum. I arranged for the parents to pay the teachers direct so we didn't have to handle any money. I had to write rules and regulations, including making sure that one parent was always on the premises. We added a second day to cover college prerequisites since most of our students were college bound. We asked students, what would you like to make a real high school experience? And they said, well, we'd like a yearbook, we'd like to have a dance, a band, drama club, and a snack bar. So we made it happen. After my divorce in 1996, I became the Spanish teacher and taught Spanish for 10 years in 3 locations. This provided for my family as a single parent. But eventually I got tired of grading papers, and after some soul searching and taking career assessments, I learned that my strengths are foreign language, administrator, and teacher. And then R for result. We had 20 to 25 students at the end of our first term. The parents loved it and wanted more. We added a second class in 1993 and up to 5 classes in 94. Monday was K through 12 and Wednesday was grade 9 through 12. I made it a 501c3 and called it Homeschool Connections. It is still in existence today, serving 1,000 students and 100 families. Creating this co-op was hard and challenging, but I have experienced a different life, and it gave me the joy of connecting with others. So Cyndi, how does it hear your star story?
It's a bit crazy.
I hope I captured.
Well,
I'm sure
and
that
yeah, I mean,
capture everything, but
I was one of the co-founders. There were other women that were involved, but you know, it was before a lot was automized. And so there was a lot of, you know, lists and everything was by hand. Most of the things were by hand. But it was, yeah, it's fun to, in the last couple of days, to be reliving this and thinking about it again, and, you know, realizing all the energy that went into it, and how there's a lot of things that I'm doing now that are different but similar, you know what I mean, in terms of bringing people together. And so
yeah,
I really enjoyed working with you on this, and I think it's a beautiful structure for being able to create your story and have it have some flow. I left some things out that she put in her story, but when I first told my story to Patrice, it was very raw and all over the place. And I tried to pare it down for you guys, but I think you got the full picture here. So
yeah.
it's a beautiful process.
So I'm going to ask the rest of you, did it sound like that Cyndi was bragging or boasting?
No.
No, she was just simply sharing her experience and sharing the facts of what she did to make it happen. Do you hear the passion, the enthusiasm, the pride in her story?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's again the advantage of first doing the good experience, because that's what unleashes the passion, the pride, the enthusiasm. Now, Cyndi, if you can pull up the next slide. Again, I just want to review. So again, this process is a 2-step process. The first is to really identify what the strengths are, and we use the good experience exercise. So remember, the good experience has 3 criteria: something you do well, something you enjoy doing, and something that you're proud of. And you must have all 3 criteria, and you must be active in the story. Again, working with a partner, telling your story to someone else. It could be a colleague, a friend, a family member, and have them listen to your story and feed back. What were the strengths that you demonstrated in that story? Because that's where the validation comes, and that's what gives you the confidence to really own those strengths. Oftentimes we take these career assessments and strengths assessments, and you get a computerized printout supposedly of what your strengths are. But this is different because it comes from your own experience. and it's in words that you identify with. That is the power of the good experience story. And then how are you going to share your story with clarity and confidence? And you have the STAR format. Again, the situation, the task, the action, the result. This helps you to structure that story so that it comes out with clarity, with confidence, and you tell it with that enthusiasm and passion, which makes people want to listen, right? They want to hear that, what fires you up, what brings you alive in that story, and that's going to help you to connect. So when you go out for networking, or you're working with a client or even interviewing for a job, you want to practice these STAR stories so that they're foremost in your brain, so that when you're in that situation, you can just deliver the STAR story with confidence, with clarity, and toot your own horn. Share your greatness with the world.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Patrice. I highly recommend the process, having gone through it myself and have been able to see how you were able to help Linda at our March event, really pull out of her, when she made the masks for everybody, and how that all, how that made her feel, the difference she was able to make in the community, the impact, because we don't realize the ripple effect that we have in the world, in the community. And this is a great format to be able to share that without, like you say, being prideful, but you are proud, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have that sense of pride that, wow, I really did that. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And, we all have different times in our life where we have a different life, if you will. But we carry the skills forward with us. And it's beautiful to be able to take the time to reflect on, the process that brought us to where we are today. So thank you for that, Patrice. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So why don't we go ahead and open it up? Well, actually, let's see here. Do you want to pull it all together here with this slide?
Oh, sure. Sure. So again, I'm a certified life coach. I'm passionate about helping you to discover your strengths. So if you would like some help discovering your good experience stories and then being able to write a STAR story, then I would love to help you with that. Also, maybe you have your STAR stories, but you want someone to practice with. Maybe you're going to a networking event or you're working with some new clients and you want to practice those STAR stories. So again, I would love to work with you on that to help you practice. Or do you want to go deeper? Do you want to really unleash your passion by aligning what it is you do with your strengths? Because oftentimes we kind of get pigeonholed in doing something. Maybe we're good at it, but we don't necessarily enjoy doing it. And we're not too proud of maybe what we did, but you want to maybe realign and look at maybe other opportunities where you can really utilize your strengths. And that's what I love doing. I love working with clients, helping you to find your strengths and then realigning your life so that you're able to use those strengths every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and stop share so that we can have an opportunity to have just a discussion about the STAR stories, maybe more information about it that Patrice can provide. Any questions that our listeners have, either from Linda's STAR story or my STAR story, because Linda's here as well. So feel free to unmute yourself and we can have just a conversation about what you learned today, even what you learned from our March event. Feel free to unmute yourself and share.
Cyndi, if I could just make a recommendation. I don't know how much time we have left.
We have 15 minutes.
But is there anyone that would like to share a good experience story and actually experience this process yourself? Again, something you enjoy doing, something you're proud of, something that you're good at. Does anybody want to share a story? And then have us listen and feed back to you what your strengths are?
Or if you have any questions or just ahas, insights about this process.
The other option we could do is we could look at the STAR format. Can anybody come up with a STAR? A situation, task, action, and result. Does anybody want to give that a try?
Can I ask a question? Oh,
Please
sorry.
do.
So have you found that you meet particularly women of more our age brackets that have these issues versus our younger set of women? In the world? Because I don't see a lot of fear in tooting horns from younger women at all. As a matter of fact, I'm like, okay, maybe you should tone it down a little bit because, you know, I mean, especially Facebook and stuff. I mean, they're constantly posting pictures of themselves. Like I'm like, it's such a different world. So I'm just curious what you've experienced with that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think it's true. There might be a little ageism in this particular exercise, is that maybe, you know, the older we are, I'm a baby boomer generation, that we did receive conditioning. I actually went to Catholic school, and we were taught by nuns that you never highlight yourself. You know, you never boast about yourself. Otherwise, you'll be labeled as a show off.
Right.
Or you get a crack with a ruler. So maybe that conditioning has changed for the next generation, that, like you said, they're very comfortable tuning their own horn on social media. So I think that's an excellent question.
And obviously not everyone. I don't mean to paint everyone with the same paintbrush, but it just seems to have morphed a bit. A little bit, but there's always people that have insecurities, always, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point though. Thank you.
I wonder if how much social media has to play into that, Brenda's, because I agree. I look at my daughter-in-laws versus, you know, how I would handle things growing up, and it's like, you know, everything has to be documented now.
Yeah,
you know, what
even
you
the food
eat,
that you eat,
where you've been, and it's fun too. We do that.
It is. It's fun, but
it's fun.
well, and are they really? I guess the other question, and get really deep into psychology, Patrice, is like, because they're posting it on social media, do they seriously feel that way if you were talking to them face to face? Or
That was what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Are they putting on a persona? Because people aren't themselves, and I mean, they're removed. They're so removed. You know, I mean, just the negativity on social media is like, would you literally say that to someone's face? You know, if you would, then go ahead and say it. If you wouldn't, keep it to yourself, is what I always think. You know, so if I post something, it's something I would say right to your face, though I don't say negative. I try not to say negative things, but on social media, but that's an interesting thought too.
Yeah, I was wondering how much they actually believe it, even though they're putting it out there. So by doing the process and going through this, I think they connect even more to that authentic version of yourself in your story. Because when Cyndi was telling her story, like, I don't know about you all, but I was like, well, no wonder we're in exceptional connections and we have this amazing group and we're here together, right? Like, no wonder this is where we're at. And look at the legacy she already has created. Like, you know.
And the power of what she just did, we all know her, love her, know she's wonderful. But it really, when you know more like what we just now know, because I kind of knew your story, but not that deep. I mean, I have so much even more admiration, respect, and just think of you as an even more better person than I already thought you were. But you don't go around, hey, I did this, but there's not, I think it's important, obviously, Patrice, that's what you're getting at, that we do share what we do. Because it gives us more, what's the word I'm looking for? More credibility. More credibility.
Yeah.
Just like, how can Cyndi do or run exceptional connections? Well, hey, take a look at her past. That'll tell you how she can run exceptional connections excellently, right? Because she knows how to do stuff.
And how
Done.
gracefully she handles when you show up a week early for a garden party. Like, you know,
Did
We
you
got to
do
have our
that?
own tea party.
I did.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I'm in my jammies, but come on in, let's have some tea.
I was
Well,
digging
she
in the
was in the
dirt.
garden.
I was digging in the dirt.
I was like, we found her in the garden.
Yeah.
So grab a trowel and let's get going.
Yeah, that's right. Help me out here.
Mhm.
Well, going back to the conversation about social media, it occurs to me when people put things out there sometimes, I think they're trying to get affirmation for their own insecurities. It's like, what do they call it? Something from the agreement from the community, because I don't, when I'm secure in what I'm feeling, I don't need to put it out there. But if you're kind of testing the waters to see what, people are going to say. So I think social media is a very interesting animal, and it has shaped our culture. I see how it shapes the younger generation. And, I'm grateful that we didn't have a lot of the devices that they have now when I homeschooled my kids. In fact, my brother wanted to buy my boys what it was called, box, iBox? Xbox. I wouldn't let him. I'm like, no, I don't want it in my house.
Wow, that's tough. There's so much peer pressure around that
Oh,
now.
yeah, they were not happy with me. And
That's the parent I would have been too. Not happy with me, but
yeah, I'm not your best friend. I'm your mom, and so but I'm
Mhm.
grateful because none of my kids are living at home. They're all, they left there.
They're all
daughter,
amazing.
yeah, my daughter graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in psychology. She is hired by University of Washington as a research assistant right out of college. She started these are things I'm proud of. I'm not boasting. I'm
no,
proud
of course
of it.
not.
Like that whole homeschool experience was to raise kids that are independent, that, and I remember thinking that over the time. I'm like, okay, this is hard. This is exhausting. This is grueling, but I'm doing this now so that I'm not having to support them and take care of them later. That was my envision. And my daughter's graduating with a master's in social work in May. And I'm going to go to Boston and celebrate her. She reads like 5 or 6 books a week. I mean, the girl is like voracious reader. And she's owned 2 coffee houses that won awards. She started, like training them and the protocols and hiring people and doing the books and all that. And my oldest son, Nathan, he's a top producer in Strand. It's a promotional sales. And he's the number 4 income earner in the United States in promotional sales.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is the kid
They'll be
that
taking care of you, Cyndi.
yeah.
That's the goal. That's the
This
goal.
is the kid that he did 2 years of community college and, but is a go-getter. And he thinks he taught me how to connect people. He's like, I taught you how to be a connector, Mom. He's like a who's who in Boston. And then my youngest son is a full-time firefighter, and he served 4 years in the Air Force. And he's been in the National Guard Air Force since 2012. So that's what I'm proud of.
Yeah.
You should be.
It should be. Yeah.
That's a lot of, you
So
provided a lot of fun.
the legacy of homeschool connections is a beautiful thing. And I actually, just a fun story, my acupuncturist, I told Patrice this, my acupuncturist during that homeschool, the whole, COVID thing, she had 2 kids and she was interested in homeschooling. So I mentored her and told her about homeschooling, connected her with my mentor. And now she's going to the homeschool co-op that I started. And she's telling
Oh
me
my
about, because it's gone through like 7 boards now. And she's telling me about the changes in the location. And because I'm not
Yeah, why are you here?
connected to that at all. But that's something that,
Wow. Full circle.
yeah, that's something that Patrice and I were talking about. Like she said, what are you most proud about? Of course, my kids, but I didn't mention this earlier and I forgot. It's being a part of something that you started that you're completely hands off now and is still going without you.
Mhm.
It's called
that was
legacy. It's called
That
legacy.
is your legacy.
so that's what I'm, aside from the fact that my kids are independent and doing well, I'm also very thankful that I was able to be a part of something that's still going to this day with the structures that were set up.
I was talking to
Mhm.
someone about that the other day. It's like, I wanted want to do something that can help people like forever. And she's like, well, you do that all the time. I feel like, no, I still don't. It doesn't, getting someone a mortgage, yes, they have a home, they're living in it. Their next home might be somebody else. That's a wonderful thing, but it's not, I want the ripple effect, right? The legacy. I don't want to be acknowledged for it. I just want to know that what I did made such an incredible difference to someone's life, maybe forever. Like, people have done for me, just maybe one sentence, one word,
Mhm.
that's the legacy is that's what's important to me, which is interesting. It's like, and I don't want the recognition. I just want to know that I
That you
touched
made a
somebody
difference.
so much
Mm.
that it helped shape their life to the positive. Obviously, I don't want any negative legacy, but
But
Mhm.
Brenda, just the fact that you have the desire, that's the desire of your heart. I'm sure that that's already occurred. You
I
just
hope
can't
so.
see,
Yeah.
you can't see the results of it because I think we all have that ability to touch people's lives in the way that we make a difference.
Mhm.
And, I think the small differences make the biggest
That's true.
impact.
That's true. That's true. I
It's
guess
just being
we don't
kind
always
to
get to
somebody.
see it, right?
We don't always get to see
Mhm.
it.
So you just have to hope it's
Or we
there,
don't know how we touch each other's lives.
unless someone
No.
tells you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a
Right.
seed, my analogy of a seed, we all plant seeds.
Right.
We all are planting seeds every day, whether it's a note or a call or a interaction with the client, going the extra mile, which I know that you do, Brenda, and Heather and Charlie and Linda and Patrice. We all, that's our heart, right? To make a difference and not
Mhm.
just for the money, not just, to do our job, but because we do truly want to make a difference in the world. The thing about the analogy with the seed is it needs certain things, right? It needs the right environment. It needs to be planted in fertile soil. It needs to be watered. It needs the sun. And you're not always there to witness that full process,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You might just see
Or you have to hand it off to someone else.
yeah.
You can do the watering.
I don't think we'll know in this
I
earth all of the ways we've impacted people.
I recently ventured out into the middle of nowhere where I grew up. I grew up in the middle of the woods in Snohomish County out of Snohomish. And well, we lived across the road from Weyerhaeuser property. And if you know much about Weyerhaeuser, they believe that forests are like a crop, so they replant when they take them down. And you can't even see the logging road that was there. Like looks like forest. You can't even tell that it was logged. Like I was like, that's so weird because we would go sledding on that logging road. Like we used that logging road for like natural, hiking every day, like so just like thinking about when you plant that seed that it even though you can't see it, it's still gonna grow. It's gonna, keep flourishing without you.
That's true.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful. Yeah.
There's a documentary on trees I recently watched, and I thought it was really cool because one guy had planted like a smiley face in a different kind of tree. in the forest. So when it grew up, then there's a smiley face from up above. Like,
Oh, fun.
Oh, that's
it's like,
great.
I'll have to remember where I found that documentary at.
Probably just Google smiley face tree and you'll find it.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, thank you, Patrice. I want to go ahead and end this recording and have you share your offering. So just give me 1 second here.